Welcome to March 16th, 2021, the Canton Township Board of Trustee meeting. I call it to order. Clerk Seegers, can you please take roll?
Borninski,
I'm here in Canton Township.
Foster,
I'm here in Canton Township.
Ganguly,
I'm here in Canton Township.
Graham Hudek.
Here in Canton Township.
Segrist is here in Canton Township. Slavens
Here in Canton Township.
and Snyderman.
Here in Canton Township.
Thank you. I also neglected to state the time we started, which was 6:02 p.m. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
Or so moved.
Support.
Thank you. Clerk Seegers, please call roll on the agenda.
Borninski,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Ganguly,
Aye.
Graham Hudek,
Aye.
Segrist, I, Slavens,
Aye.
Snyderman.
Aye.
Agenda adopted. So now the first item and only item, well, the first item is study session. 2021 recommended water and sewer rates. So then, who has the presentation? Who, I just want to, okay, Jade.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and let me know if you can. Okay, great. So we will start with our first item.
Okay. Do you see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Let's go over here. Okay, so we're going to go through some slides tonight. We've spent some time, myself and Wendy. Do you guys see only the presentation, or do you see like notes as well?
Only the presentation.
Only.
Okay, perfect. We spent some time, as we do every year, looking at the water rates, looking at the past usage, along with Sarah Clay from Finance and Brad Lear, the DPW manager. So we're just going to kind of go through the presentation I had sent out earlier today to the Board of Trustees, and we can go through a little bit about the system and then go into how we came to our rate recommendation. Put a couple of things in here. Some maps that just show you our system and how complex it is, some different data points. This is the water distribution system, and everybody has that. We've got 469 miles, 69.62 miles of water mains, just under 5,500 hydrants, pump station, some pressure reducing valves, and obviously we've got the 2.5 million gallon storage tank as well. So that's on the water side. And if anyone wants to see this bigger or would like this sent in a cleaner copy, let me know. We can get that sent out to you as well. And this is the sanitary sewer system. So we've got just a little over 365 miles of sanitary sewer main, 9,305 manholes, and 4 sanitary sewer lift stations. We went over this a few weeks ago, but just as a reminder, this is how the budget is divided between the water and sewer funds. We've got just a little over $19 million budgeted within the water fund, and a little over $14 million that makes up the sewer fund. They also put a graph in here showing the usage for the last 10 years. I can say that we were monitoring this closely during COVID last year, and we're surprised at the amount of water that was used. We anticipated, just with the economics and the uncertainty of the residents and the businesses that were closed, that we would have seen a decrease. And you can see we actually had our second highest water usage year compared to any year in the last 10 years. And obviously with the growth that's continuing in Canton, I don't expect that to fluctuate too further the other direction. The next set of slides we're going to go into, Wendy's going to jump in and explain. I got the easy part, just kind of explaining the system. And I guess at this point, if there's any questions from the board on that part, we can answer those. And the next parts are going to be the financial piece. So Wendy, I will turn it over to you, and you can just let me know when you need me to move through the slides.
Okay, Perfect. Thanks, Jade. So one of the first things that we start off with looking at when we're coming up with our water and sewer rates is how much cash do we need to keep in the system? So about 15 years ago or so, there was a study done that was helping the township determine just that. How much from a minimum amount, how much is the minimum amount of cash that we need to keep on hand for items, and what's the target level? And the items that are listed here are the items that you take into account when factoring that. So the operation and maintenance. So based on a study that was done that we had hired this consultant to perform for us, they said ideally, the minimum amount of cash that you want to have on hand for operation and maintenance type expenses is about 25%, but really your target should be about 30% of that. So basically, if you weren't getting any revenue in, you want to make sure you have enough cash to cover some of your costs. Historical investment in assets. So this would be obviously the cost of those assets. And a minimum, you'd want to hold about 1% of the value of those assets. And that usually ranges somewhere between 1% and 3%. With 3% could be the target, but that really depends on the age of the system. So since our system is not overly too old, the consultant had come up with a 2% as the target. Then we've got our capital outlay really for the current year and the next 5 years, which is really the same percentage. They think from a minimum amount, we should hold about 15% of our upcoming capital, but a target of 25% in cash. And then also we should be holding 15 to 25% of our current portion of our debt service payments for our principal and interest payments. So with that, at a minimum, based on those calculations, our minimum cash requirement should be 14 million, but 301,000. But our target is really $21,745,000. And that's just a good practice to have that amount of cash on hand. Just want to note that legally from our debt that we issued, we are required to have $4,700,000 on hand because we are legally required based on our bond to keep the full amount of the debt service payment on hand. So that would obviously fall within that minimum and target cash requirement. So once we calculate out what that minimum and target should be, we take a look at what our actual cash balance is. So Jade, would you mind flipping to the next? This one, and I know for me, I have to move my pictures of you guys over to see. This shows the last 6 years of where our actual cash balances are at the end of each year. So if you go to the far right, you can look at 2020. So after all the audit adjustments, well, the cash adjustments anyways have been posted for our audit, we're sitting on it December 31st of 2020, about $30 million of cash on hand in the water and sewer fund. There's a few things that we know are coming up though that we need to pay. So the first item, you can see in green right under that $30.7 million is $2.8 million. If you recall, Wautua needs to do the sewer expansion work for us, moving all of our sewage flow to Yucca. Last year or the year before, I can't remember which year, we had transferred over 7.5 million because that's what they thought the minimum amount was that it was going to take to do that expansion. Back in August, the board had, the Wautua board had approved a project for that expansion, and the actual cost came in a little bit higher. So we need to pay another $2.8 million to fully fund that expansion at Wautua. So from that 30.7 million, we need to take 2.8 million and send that over to Wautua. We are also keeping some cash on hand for some of the water main improvements that we know we're going to have to make either on Haggerty or Ford Road as part of those that project coming on. So we're holding on to an additional $1 million there. We are also holding on to $2 million for some equipment and site improvements that we know are going to be needed down at the DPW building as we expand, especially as we're expanding to do some of the projects for composting and whatnot. We know there's some additional work that needs to be done at DPW. So we're holding on to that to expand their site. And then also some cash on hand for bridge work that we need to do that will be the sewer work that are under the bridges. This is, we're keeping cash on hand for that. So once you take into account all of that, all those additional items that we know we have, that leaves us with about $24.6 million of cash. If you recall on the last page, we just talked about the target cash requirement is $21.7 million. So if we're gonna stay at that target cash requirement, then that means we have about almost $3 million of cash available to use to offset next year's rates. Are there questions on this one in the previous slide before I move forward?
Yeah, Wendy.
Sure.
The Watua money, I see on that line, there's also an 8.9 million in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming the 7.5 million in 2017 was what you were referring to for the sewers.
Yep.
What was the 8.9 and the 1.
So in 2017, when we were doing our rates, we had said, okay, we think it's going to be about $7.5 million. And then the next year, Watua said they think it's going to range somewhere between 7.5 and 8.9. So we said, all right, let's just say we need to keep cash on hand of 8.9 in case we needed that. So then in 2019, we actually had paid them the 7.5 million. So that 1.4, the difference between the 8.9 and the 7.5 we gave them. And now when they thought the worst case was 8.9 million, it's the actual cost came in higher than that. So instead of it just being the 1.4 million that we were holding on to, we need to actually contribute 2.8 million to them.
I see. This doesn't show what we've already transferred. We didn't transfer another 8.9.
Correct.
Yeah.
We were just at that point in time, we were holding on to the cash, like saying, we had, in 2018, we had $26 million of cash, but we knew we were going to have to give them 8.9 million. So then that's when we were backing down to say we had $17 million of available cash.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
I have a question, Wendy.
Sure.
So is this how, is this how you set the rates? I'm just curious. So if you have a surplus, there's a reduction made in the rates?
Yep. I will get to that on the next slide, actually.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So just keep that 2.9 and we'll move ahead.
I can go back. Sorry.
I just want to make sure there's no other questions on that portion of it.
So I just had a question on the Ford Road water main project. And it looks like in 2019, we put 4.5 million towards that. And we're now going to put 1 million towards that. So it'd be 5.5 million.
No, it's actually each of these years is a standalone year. So initially.
Right, but we've already put 4.5,
No,
right?
we did not. We did not. We thought we were going to need to put that aside, and then Jade could speak to this a little bit more, probably more educated than I can. But the MDOT said for the majority of the water and sewer main work on Ford Road, they would actually be covering a lot of that with their project costs when they do Ford Road. However, Haggerty is not a state project, so as we renovate Haggerty Road, we will have to maintain any of that. So we were just setting cash aside for that. Jade, I don't know if there's something further to
Yeah. So when we started to look at Ford Road and looking at the progress, we said, okay, we don't have any dollars in here to upgrade our utilities. So last year when we had OHM do a study and looked at what it would take for us to expand and replace our water mains along Ford Road, we decided that we needed to allocate those dollars because we assumed that would fall on the township. When we presented that to MDOT, they looked at it, looked at our study, looked at the design of the project, and through that process realized that the water main changes that we're gonna have to make were already basically included in the project. So we are not gonna have to pay for those, with the exception, like Wendy said, of Haggerty Road. And I guess something else, just because this may help as well. This sheet that we're looking at is more of a worksheet. It's not an actual budget. So when we do the predictions or each year and we look at year by year, that's that's what we know at the time to say, okay, we need to spend this kind of money. So each year we start over with, okay, we didn't need that last year. We still need to make sure and hold on to this. So that 4.5 that we had allocated for Ford Road last year, we didn't need that. So as we went back and started to look at the project as a whole and said, okay, well, we may not need it on Ford Road, but we still need a portion of it just for the Haggerty piece.
Right, okay, so I guess I was wondering why it had decreased so much, and you've explained that, so thank you. Does that also help explain why we have more than, more than the 21,000 this year, like that we thought we needed? We have 24 because we've been holding on to the 4.5, some of it?
No, well, partially, that's partially part of it, but partially, and we'll see this in a couple slides too, that, we project out how much cash we're gonna, so we set our rates based on how much cash we think we're gonna need each year. Along with that, when we set that rate, we have to assume how many million gallons of, or billions gallons of water that we are going to sell.
Mhm.
If we end up selling more water than we expect,
Then we have a good year.
then we have more cash. So, we have to kind of look into the crystal ball and,
Right, and predict that.
right.
But
So then we do kind of almost like a look back adjustment to say, okay, we got more cash than we need. So now
so now we need to adjust down because
right.
we don't want to keep being in the business of for profit of
Right.
of water.
And legally, we can't do that. We can't,
Yeah.
we have to watch our rates and make sure that, legally, we need to make sure we have enough cash on hand to meet when emergencies arise, when there's breakages in the system and what we need to do. So that's why we had this study done 15 years ago to help us determine how much cash was the right amount of cash.
Mhm.
And then, after we've, scrubbed all those numbers, then we have to do our due diligence and factor in extra cash and reduce,
Right.
potentially reduce future rates.
Right. No, that's good. I'm glad that I'm not glad that we have this excess money, but I'm glad that we can use it to lower rates.
Yeah, and I think after we get through this, I don't want to get the cart before the horse, but we're going to talk about some next steps that we want to take on with the water and sewer fund. And I think keep in mind that Wendy said the last study was done 15 years ago. So we'll talk about that when we kind of wrap up here.
Okay, so this next slide, we have this large Excel file that Sarah and finance goes through. It's a very overwhelming spreadsheet to go look through. But we go through what the budgeted expenses are going to be for the upcoming year. So this is kind of a summary of that. So when you look at the top 2/3 of this, this represents what is in the budget, actually in the 2021 budget that the board has approved. So we go through and we sit down, finance and MSD sits down in a partnership and really goes through line by line and identifying areas where do we think, even though the budget might be set at a certain level, do we think that we don't actually need cash for all these items? So do we think, if the water purchases was budgeted for $11.2 million, is that truly what we think we're going to need to collect cash for? Do we think it's going to be more? Do we think it's going to be less? So we start out with the budget and then we talk about things like, okay, do we have, more budgeted in repairs and maintenance than we think we're actually going to need cash for? So we adopted a budget at a certain level, but if we don't think we're going to need cash for that, we want to make sure we're not passing along a rate, inflating a rate to our residents that we don't think we're going to need. So we make some tweaks here and there from the budget, only for rate calculation purposes. We don't bring that back to the board for approval. This is really just kind of a, where do we think the budget's going to end up? So after taking a look through that and scrubbing that, the total budgeted operating expenses that we think we're going to need cash for is $35 million. So then we go down to the bottom third and we see that there's some items that are in that budget that we know we don't need cash for. So depreciation. So when we have $4 million of depreciation budgeted in that $35 million number, we don't need to collect cash from our residents for that because we already paid for the capital. So we don't want to say, okay, residents, you owe us extra money to cover our depreciation because they already paid for the capital. So we back that out. We don't need cash for our depreciation expenses. We also don't need cash for the other revenue items that we collect because such as, if somebody pays penalties and interest, that helps pay off our expenses. Interest on our investments, that factors in as well. Tap-in fees, that factors in. So we also we don't need to end up charging additional towards the water and sewer rates. So that was $3.2 million. There are a couple other
We lose Wendy.
Looks like we lost Wendy.
Yeah, she might have lost some of her bandwidth there. There
Can
we
you
go.
hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
now you're back.
Okay, I'm sorry. I could hear all you guys. I'm going to try to flip over to because it just says my internet's unstable. Jade, text me if it comes unstable and I'll switch over to my hotspot on my phone.
Okay.
But there's other items such as the principal payments that is not part of the budgeted expenses because it's a liability. And the way we have to budget enterprise funds, it's not actually in our budgeted expenses. So we have to add that back because we do need cash to pay our debt. So we have to add back that 1.1 million and the $1.6 million. So, we start with the 35, we subtract out the items we don't need cash for, the 4 million and the 3.2, we add the principal payments for the water and sewer debt for the 1.1 and 1.6. And this 2.9 million, that's where we just took from the previous slide to say we have more cash than we needed. So we also don't need to factor this in our rate setting. So instead of actually saying we needed to come up with our rates to come up with $35 million of cash, we actually needed our rates to be set to come up with cash of $27.6 million. Questions on that piece of it? Before we go into the drum roll, what this means for the rates? Okay, Jade, would you mind advancing?
It's not, oh, there we go.
Okay. So here, oh, you can't see my mouse. The first in the box,
Whoops.
right there, yep. In that first box, the revenue required to meet cash requirements down at the bottom, that $27.6 million number, that's what was on that previous slide. That's the cash we need to make. At the very top, there's $3.1 million. That represents the amount of cash that we are collecting based on this presentation. That's the fixed fee that we would be charging to the residents. That's the revenue that we'll get from the fixed fees. That, we'll get into that a little bit at the end of this as well. That number right now is also based on that study that was done 15 years ago. That was basically a ready to serve fee. Like, what's the minimum amount that we need to basically run our operations? And it's a very small amount. When you compare our budget, it's, $35 million. We're saying, of our people costs and everything, we need to collect $3.1 million just to serve. But that means the remainder is going to be made up as variable rates between water and sewer. So the current amount is the next column. The next column is the current charges that people are currently getting on their water and sewer bills. So the typical residential home has a monthly fixed fee of $7.14 a month. So multiply that times 2, because we have bi-monthly water billing, it's $14.28. And then the variable water rate is $6.23, and the variable sewer is $5.28. If we did not change those rates, the next column, 2 over actually, the revenue projections based on current rates, this would be what we would collect looking at the bottom. For the water variable, we would have collected $14.8 million of revenue. and sewer would be 12.6 million. And at the bottom, you can see we would have actually collected $30,672,000 of cash. Remember, we just said we only needed 27.6 million. And with that, I want to make sure you can see right under, kind of right under that $30 million, we are projecting our consumption to be the 2.388 billion gallons of water sold. We are basing that on the lowest amount of gallons sold in the last 10 years, because we have to come up with a rate. We do know we need to collect enough cash to pay for our bills. So we just conservatively say we're only going to sell 2.3 billion gallons of water. Based on that, we would have collected 30.6 million. So we know we don't want to do that. We don't want to overcharge. So with that, going over two columns, and there's some blue highlights, the water rate here we're saying is we're proposing to be $6.36 per 1,000 gallons sold. That's about a 2% increase over what we're currently charging for the water variable rate. I believe our increase from GLWA was about 2.37%. So it's in line with what GLWA was passing along. However, the sewer rate we're saying should be $3.89, and that's actually a 26% decrease in that sewer variable rate. And that's predominantly because we have gotten out of the Wayne County system and we are sending our sewage flow to Yucca. So it's a very significant cost savings, which we knew was going to happen when the board and everybody ultimately decided to go that direction. And you'll note up above on the very top line of the column third to the left, the water and sewer fixed charge, we're proposing to be $7.13 per month, which is a penny different from what it has been for your typical residential customer. So overall, on the very bottom of the box, you can see that we're projecting or proposing a 10.95% variable rate decrease to the water and sewer rates beginning on May 1st. And Jade, if you flip to the next slide, this shows what this would mean to your average bills. So, you know, a low end user of the system would use about I think it's 2 million gallons every 2 months on that. Once we start having all these zeros, it throws me off. I think it's 2 million gallons. So that's about a 6.8% decline on their bill. Again, because a chunk of their bill is fixed, that's why they don't have as much as the 10.95% savings. The average bill, bi-monthly bill is about 8 million gallons. So that would be a savings of about 9.5% for an average user, and for a high user, which is averaged to be about 18 million every 2 months, it's about a 10.25% decline in their average bill. Questions on any of that?
Hey, Wendy,
Yes,
just to clarify, that's not million gallons, it's just 2,000 gallons and 8,000.
it is 2,000. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have some of them that say million thousands.
I know.
I get all mixed up with those. Thanks, Brad.
You're welcome.
Any questions?
I had a question on the previous slide.
Sure.
I'm just trying to understand this. So we are saying that at the current rate, it will be 11.5. And if we do the rate reduction, it's 10.25. That's
Correct.
right? So
Correct,
how
yeah.
are we determining these? Like, you know, we reduce the sewer rates and we increase the water rates. What is that based on?
It's based on our projected expenses for both the water and sewer. So if you go, Jade, if you go back one more slide, you can see that we have the water maintenance budget and if you look at the focus on the top 2/3, we have the expenses for the water in one section and expenses for the sewer in the other section. And then we factor in like the depreciation, we would take the depreciation for the water part
Okay.
out of the water and out of the sewer part out of the sewer. And then I believe, Sarah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the increase and decrease in cash reserves for that 3 million, we split that 50-50 between the water and sewer. We try to break it out as much as we can for the different revenue and expense functions, but for that using cash, we just split that 50-50 between both of those buckets of needs.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
And I just want to make a quick statement, a few statements. Good job. This is excellent. The residents will be very happy. And it was interesting because, you know, during COVID, we were getting a lot of calls in the water billing department regarding their bills because they were using so much water. And I see it's proof with your chart, but, you know, we started to talk to residents, you know, they're home all day. So they're using the bathroom, the shower, they're cooking and cleaning more. So certainly their water usage was up, and it certainly shows here on your graph. So I just wanted to make that quick statement. And thank you. I know it's a lot of work. It's a good job.
So I have a question, and I think Jade might have been alluding to it a little bit, but I'm wondering, so it's been 15 years since we had the study done. I'm assuming that maybe there are some changes that might need to be looked at, and so I'm wondering if it's time for another study.
Yeah, I'll take that one. And that was what I was alluding to. So not only has the study been done 15 years ago, but our system has changed. The township constructed the 2.5 million gallon water tank. And we're in the process of doing an analysis on our system right now with OHM, which we should have in our hands. Well, we did get the draft copy, and we'll be setting up a work session to go over that with the board as well, because that will determine where we go with the regional water authority. But that aside, what the analysis did is it finally showed, after 3 years of the tank being up and running, how we've been managing that, how it's produced for the township, and then where it can take us moving forward with GLWA to renegotiate our rates. So taking that information and then getting another study done will really help us. And then the other piece that we really need to look at, and I'm just going to leave the slide where it's at, but I just want to bring it to everybody's attention that the fixed fee, we only collect $3.1 million a year for the fixed fees. And that is just our fees to minimally run our water and sewer departments. You know, a lot of people call that fixed fee like a readiness to serve fee. When we're charged from a GLWA, we're charged almost I want to say it's over $11 million a year for our purchases from GLWA. 60% of that is to cover GLWA's fixed fees or readiness to serve. So $6.2 million is we're charged from GLWA just to meet their fixed fee requirement. So we have all of our liabilities, I guess I don't know if that's the right term to use with accountants on the call, but it's the term I'm going to use. It's all worked into our rates, and I'm not so sure that that's probably the way that it should be. So I think a study is absolutely necessary at this time to make it take a look at our whole system, because it has changed so much, and then and see what's happened in the industry too, because GLWA 15 years ago was still DWSD, and they had a whole different calculation of how they charged communities. So and then with the growth of the township. So that's kind of a long way around it. But I do think that we are going to move forward with a study to look at our water and sewer fund.
Okay. All right, thank you. That I want to echo Diane and say this is great. So thank you.
I have just a quick question. Two quick questions. One is, oh, Wendy, are you still there? That's not one of my questions. I don't see her. Do you guys see her? No.
Nope.
I'll wait. She probably lost her.
Did you have anything for Jade?
Um,
I'm not as smart as Wendy, I guess.
mine were financial, not too financial, but
We have Sarah as
Well,
well.
Sarah's here.
oh, okay, yeah. So anyway, then Sarah, while we're waiting for Wendy, it would be good to see a chart that shows the variable rates, or maybe including the fixed rates. I'm not sure. Year by year over like the last 5 years, just to show the trend.
You know,
Um,
I have that, Stephen. I can email that to
Okay.
you.
And then Diane, it would even be good if you haven't already, which knowing you, you probably have, is to put that on the website so people can see that.
Yeah, and I think when you are right, Stephen, Wendy probably could have answered that because I know we got a question from a resident who may be on the call tonight asking about that, and she did pull that data. So if she pops back on, I think she has that ready and she might be able to share that.
Okay. It might even be good for 10 years because we'll see the rates going up, and now for 3, 4, 5 years they've been coming down, which is
Right.
great. The other one, and Sarah, I don't know if you know this, is the water tank. Have we paid that off yet? And if not, when will we?
We have not paid that off yet, but it
27?
soon. No, it was like a 10-year, I think, and we took that in what 2013 maybe. I can look it up.
I think it was later than that. Well, no, we started paying for it earlier than it was finished, probably.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm looking it up right now. The water tower portion is 2023. So
And,
2.5 more years.
and what other things that are longer? It sounds like there were other things that we're paying off.
Yeah, that was included in a debt that was taken out in 2007 for Watua purposes. So the Watua sewer piece of it goes until 2027.
That must be what I was thinking. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, one more question. How much is it every year, the water tower that we have a couple more years of?
The water tower piece alone is just over 1.2 million.
Okay, so that's another $1 million.
Looks like we pay it in April, so we haven't made our 2021. So we have 3 years to go.
3 years, so. But that was probably included in the analysis of the rates, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so 2 more years and then the rates perhaps can get the full effect of the water tower at that point, which would be great. That's it.
Yeah, Wendy's definitely having some issues getting back on.
Jade, could you let her know she can just call in if she can't get in, via Zoom? She can just call. Does anyone have any other questions?
I don't have a question, just a comment. I'm just glad to see that our rates are continuing to decrease. And so thank you to Jade and to Wendy and the finance team.
Yeah, they did a great job. Thank you. Really good job. Anyone else?
Yeah, may I, Madam Supervisor? I think one thing I want to talk about, so I know it was made public that Canton Township might receive $9.1 million out of the stimulus bill that just passed. And I know that one of the statutory items that you could spend on is water and sewer infrastructure. I think another one was broadband infrastructure. So if at any point in time we start teasing the idea of building a second water tower, or in future years when we start talking about some of these infrastructure debt payments, I wonder if that might be something we could look at using that money for if we if we start getting curious about ways to spend it. So just wanted to put that on everyone's radar. But that was one of the things you would spend that 9.1 million on. And then two, I just wanted to thank and to some degree congratulate all of the staff who work so hard on the work of setting these water and sewer rates. It's complicated mathematics, and it's also good to see. It's good to see good public policy benefit the residents. It's good to see. It's not every day that people can feel like their government, whether it be local, state, or national, is delivering results for them. But this is a great example of us routinely reducing water rates over a series of years. It feels like every year since I've been on the board. And so I'm grateful for that hard work, and I'm grateful to be a part of such an awesome team. And I feel proud that we can deliver that for the residents. It's a good sign of management, and it's a good sign that we are being, we've always been thoughtful about the future.
Thank you. I agree. Anyone else? Did anyone have any questions for Wendy? Or, I mean, because Sarah could not many other, or any that they wanted to wait for. I know she's having some trouble today with the connection. Let me see if we have any. Oh, let's see, attendees. Do any of our attendees have any questions? You can raise your hand via Zoom. No, okay. I don't see any hands in the attendees. Okay, let me see. I don't want to, she's probably panicking, trying to get back on quickly. I'm sure she is. Okay, well, great. Thank you for that great presentation. Oh, here's Wendy. Hi, Wendy, we've answered all the questions.
Perfect. Oh my gosh.
I know.
You know how slow it takes to reboot a computer when you're freaking out about your computer not rebooting?
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
I've been there.
Gosh.
She's probably freaking out.
So Wendy, I was not able to share what you sent me though. She does
Yeah.
the rates, but I can't get the picture to open up on my computer. So I guess
Okay, well, I can bring it up. I did pull it up on my computer. I got that back up.
We have electronic ghosts today.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I guess so.
I
And
think
we,
my computer's still on vacation.
we temporarily promoted Sarah to finance director
Yeah.
during that time, so she needs a little bonus pay there.
You know what? She definitely probably deserves that. She's
Take
been
my step up pay.
she's been working her tail off. I just put this together real quick before the meeting. So this shows, here's the monthly fixed charge over the last 5 years, the water variable rate, and then the sewer variable rate. So, you know, we had a monthly fixed charge in 2017 to 18 to 572. It went up to 631. And 19 through 21, it stayed flat at 714. If you recall, we opted not to change anything with the water rates because everything was happening with COVID when we were going to take this to the board. So we just kept the rates flat between 19 and 20 and 20 and 21. And now we're proposing a 1 cent per month drop. But keep in mind that this is monthly. So, you know, back 5 years ago, that was a quarterly charge, and now it's bi-monthly. So on the bill, now it'll be $7.26 per bill. Our variable rate is, you know, 596, that went up to 611. Then it went up to 623, and that stayed flat those 2 years, and now it's up to 636. And then the sewer variable rate was at $6.87 in 2017 and 18, and it went down to 580. Then it went down to 528, and now it's down to 389. So that's actually decreased pretty significantly over the last 5 years. And we've for the most part, just been passing along for the water variable rate, the increases from GLWA each of the last 5 years.
And I just want to remind people that we work quarterly, like Wendy said, up through the 2019, 2020 is when we went to bi-monthly, so.
Great, that's,
It's on each bill, yeah.
and then Jade, I know you had been asked a question earlier about a study. How long would a study take usually?
So we'll get them, we'll have to go out to bid, or we'll have to discuss who to actually have conduct the study. And then it'll probably take them 2 to 3 months once they get all the information that we have to turn that around. They'll want to look at our past billings, look at our records, look at all of the debt. They'll look at everything that we presented here tonight plus more, and then they'll factor that in and come back. So we would be able to absolutely have that conversation and then set ourselves up for next year's rate discussion ahead of time.
Okay. All right, thank you. Did anyone have any other questions? Everyone said great job too, just to let you know, Wendy.
No.
While you were struggling to get in.
Thank you. Sorry about that. That's a little embarrassing.
No, technical goes. We'll go back to the attendees just to see if there's any other questions here. Okay, is there any public comment? Any public comment from our visitors here? I don't see any hands. Great. Well, is there anything else that anybody else wants to speak about? Any other topics or make any comments or statements on?
I just had a quick question. So when will these water rates take effect? This is for the 2021-22 year, right?
Effective in May, right?
Yeah, it's effective May. So because it's in the ordinance, we have to take it. The first reading would be the first meeting. The first reading would be the first meeting in April, and then the second one would be the second meeting in April, and then they would be effective with the May bill.
Great. Any other questions?
On the stimulus funds that Michael talked about, can we get a breakdown of how we're able to spend that money? Like on what type of things we can spend that money on?
Yeah, Congressman Haley Stevens is putting a package together for every municipality. She's giving details about what the award is for each municipality, and she's going to give details about that. They're reading it. Yeah, so that's good. That's coming to us. All the Congress people are doing that to all of their cities and towns. So we should be seeing that pretty soon.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? No. Well, tomorrow's St. Patrick's Day, so everybody have a safe and happy St. Patrick's Day. We also are, just to let you know, our groups are communities celebrating International Women's Month and Holy. That's also going on. Also to let you know, what else? Multiple sclerosis, MS, and this is also Disability Awareness Month. So MS Awareness Month, Disability Awareness Month, and Passover. So a lot of things happening this month for our community members. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Clerk Segrist, please take a roll call on the motion.
Oh, can you let me know who seconded it? I timed.
Summer?
I think Summer.
Mhm.
Summer and Kate.
Okay. Cool. So seconds and the third. So Borninski,
Aye.
Foster,
Aye.
Ganguly,
Aye.
Graham Hudak,
Aye.
Segrist, aye. Slavens,
Aye.
Snyderman.
Aye.
Great. Adjournment passes. Everyone have a good evening.